Hola chicos, bienvenidos una vez más a Somos Más, Somos Pueblo. Esta vez denunciamos la violación de los derechos de este cineasta canadiense que revela las penurias que vio darse lugar en una cárcel dominicana. Esta razón es por lo que aquí, en Somos Más, Somos Pueblo, nos sumamos a la causa más importante de estos tiempos: proteger nuestra cultura.
They took the kids. Those kids were like 12 years old. Like I think one of them was like 15. I'm not sure, but they were small. They were like at least 12. They took those kids and they put them in the cells, not our cell, but they put them in the cells. They locked them up in, and then as I'm walking, they're banging. They're like Malik, Malik, and I could not look at them. I put my head down. I was like crying. I was like so sad. I'm like, I can't help you guys. I felt so vulnerable. And then they're banging the whole entire night. They're banging. They're like, Robbie. They're like yelling. And then Rob's like, is that the kids? I'm like, yeah, it's one of the kids. They're like trying to, they're asking for help. Yeah. And those kids, I don't know where they are. None of us know where they are. And the one day I'm walking in Punta Cana after I got released, and the mom comes, she's like, ¿Dónde están los niños? ¿Dónde están los niños? I'm like, I don't know where the kids are. It's like the kids, they're still arrested. They're still being detained. I haven't seen them in like 17 days.
Suscríbete.
El día de hoy estaremos entrevistando a un joven cineasta de Canadá, Malik Bouhabid, quien vino a la República Dominicana por primera vez con la finalidad de vacacionar y de promover el turismo en la República Dominicana. En ese viaje, él conoció a Roberto Zapata, quien es un activista social que tiene una fundación en Bávaro, Punta Cana, llamada Be a Light, que se encarga de ayudar a los niños que trabajan en la calle. Se comunicó con Roberto, le dijo que quería colaborar y Roberto le informó que ellos estaban haciendo un tipo de filmación, o querían hacer un tipo de filmación con la finalidad de dar a conocer su trabajo para recibir ayuda. Entonces ahí se sumó Malik a ayudarlo como cineasta, porque es un cineasta, y poniendo sus equipos y su conocimiento. ¿Qué pasa? Que cuando ellos iniciaron la filmación, fueron detenidos y acusados inicialmente de tráfico de niños, solamente por retratar una realidad que se vive en la República Dominicana y específicamente en esa zona de Bávaro Punta Cana, aunque sea una zona turística. Luego de eso, a él, cuando lo metieron preso, le quitaron todos los equipos. Él se tiene que ir del país, que quizá este video salga luego de que él se haya ido, y no le han devuelto sus equipos. Sumado a los gastos legales que él ha tenido que hacer, ha gastado alrededor de $10,000. I want to know, and the people needs to know, what was your experience with all that stuff that we saw in the newspapers and in the media, that some people were trafficking child, and making movies and trafficking child, and you were accused of that, and we saw a picture of you in a digital media and the television also.
Well, the first thing, whenever we were arrested, and he's like, the cops just came. There's a lot of cops that came to us, and I'm confused. There's a lot of Spanish talking. It's loud, and I'm like, "What, Rob? What's happening?" And he's like, "We're being detained. We're going to jail." I'm like, in my head, I was like, "That's impossible. What did we do wrong?" And then as the time passed, and as we went to the officers, the police, the jail, and then the officers were accusing us of things, they started accusing us of child trafficking, exploitation. In my head, I couldn't believe what was going on. I was shocked. I was in total, I froze completely. And then when they took a photo of us without telling us where the photo was going to be, one guy took his phone, he took a photo of us, and then literally a couple hours after, there's an article that says we were being accused of child trafficking and exploiting minors, and we were in jail. It was me, Rob, and then 3 other filmmakers that were part of the project. We did not have any right to make a phone call. I couldn't even contact the Canadian embassy. Every time I tried to ask them, I needed to tell my friends. I have the right to call a lawyer. I need to call the Canadian embassy. Every time they would just walk away from when we were in the cell, and I was a bit, I was scared. I was nervous. I'm like, hey, how am I going to get out of this? And they all are friends and only found out, like, we got arrested at 12 around. And at 8 p.m., like 6 or 8 p.m., we were able to go out. And then the friends of Rob were there. And then that was only because they found out from the news article, the Bavaro News, that were accusing us of child trafficking. That's the only way that people found out where we were after making phone calls trying to figure out where we were being detained.
And Bavaro News, they talked to you because we saw that article and we know some people that knows Robert. So we knew it was a lie, so we made like a post in Instagram saying that some filmmakers, Dominicans and tourists were like detained, accused of child trafficking, and they were not doing that, so the media didn't talk to you. It was like you saw the news and they didn't even talk to you.
No one ever said anything to us. Like, no one ever contacted us. Like, the only people that actually, like you said, helped us were you guys. You guys wrote an article, you guys posted, and people just flagrantly writing articles about us. No one talked to me, to Rob, or the filmmakers. I never got any phone calls about that. And I just see these articles, I'm like, they put the name of the project called Las Canijitas, and I'm like, who invented this name? Like, the project itself was, like, when Rob told me about the project, the name was called Street Angels. For the pilot of the documentary.
They made up a name.
So they made up a name, and then they even made on the news, there was like, before we were going to go to court, everybody's showing us this video on the news saying these filmmakers are being, they were doing this documentary called Las Cañitas that was going to be bad for tourism in Punta Cana. And they were just saying Punta Cana, bad for Punta Cana, bad for the image of Punta Cana.
But like, they didn't think that like arresting a tourist is bad for the image of the tourism,
That's just like exactly what you said. They did not think of like, oh yeah, let's just put a Canadian tourist in a cell in jail, make him eat like, eat the worst out of it. And then, oh, he's going to go back and, like he was arrested for doing the worst of this. We were doing an act of kindness. I was trying to volunteer to do an act of kindness. And I get put in jail with a bunch of criminals, accused of being a criminal, treated like a criminal, insulted and everything like that. And I'm here to promote, tourism. It's COVID. It's a very hard time. I wasn't very hesitant in coming here. I was like, it's COVID. I might get it. My parents are, they're old. In fact, my dad called me 2 weeks ago, tried to call me, called my friends, and my friends told me, hey, your dad's in the hospital. I had no way to contact him because the police has my phone, and he has no way to contact me. So I tried to tell the embassy, hey, my dad is in the hospital. I need to reach out to him. So I managed to get like a phone that can call Canada.
Okay.
They told me, I'm in the hospital. I don't know what to do. My dad's like 83. My mom is old too. I don't have any brothers and sisters. So I was like, hey, I have all this equipment that they're holding. I have my phone. They can't call me. So thank God, after like a couple of days, my dad was released, but I'm still not able to contact him properly, even going back. So that was very inconvenient. And the whole thing, it's like, they did not acknowledge the fact I was a tourist. I did not fit in. I barely spoke Spanish. I'm trying to like explain to them, hey, I want to please explain the situation. Never a chance to explain the situation. I'm like, can't you see I'm trying to, like I don't speak Spanish. Like I have curly hair, the darker skin. So they're like, yeah, you looked a little bit like the guys next to you as a Dominican. So that didn't help me in a bit, but it's just, I don't know the proper word for it. There's so many emotions I had, but I'm just completely shocked of like how the whole outcome and how I was treated, and especially the guys that were with us, how they were treated about this. There was so much evidence that showed that we were not trafficking kids or we were not exploiting minors, and we had all this camera equipment filming. There was the guy with the sound equipment, and you couldn't have just asked us, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you filming? Usually get arrested filming. Like, I filmed a lot of independent projects, and sometimes, the cops come to you, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you
like,
talk
we're filming.
With them,
You talk to them, you civilize, you have a conversation with the people, but no chance to do a conversation.
Like, they came after you, and they take you to the jail.
So we were, like, next to the van with all the equipment. We were about to go have breakfast because we didn't eat. And then they just come, like I don't even know, there's like 10 of them, there's a lot of them, he's yelling and all that stuff, and then one of the cop gets on the passenger seat and he tells Rob, he's like, all right, we're driving to the station. So Rob drove us in the van with the cop to the police station. We left the equipment there, and then we got to the station. They we had to take our stuff, like our phones. They were like putting it, like our IDs, putting on the table. They were insulting us. The guys, they're like, you guys are Dominicans, like somos Dominicanos, and then it's like disgrace to the country. They were telling that to the filmmakers, and then I'm like, I'm so confused. I'm like, what's going on? Can I make a phone call? Please, phone call, blah, 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 like a lot of yelling. I'm like, they're absolutely not wanting to hear anything we said. Right away, take our stuff, take your shoes, put us in the jail. And then we got lucky that there was nobody in the jail except for one. There was a kid in the jail. Like, the kid was 17. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, they put us in cell. There's a kid in this cell.
In what prison? You know the name?
I don't know the name, but it was like, I think, Politur in Friusa.
Yeah, that's the name.
I think that's Sestur or Sestur prison.
In Friusa.
In Friusa, yeah.
And it was like a minor inside the cell?
Yeah, there was a 17-year-old in the cell. And then he knew Rob, because that's one of the kids that was also, he's not part of the group of Rob, but he recognized Rob at that moment, and because that's like, he even participated, I believe, in one of the classes, but he knew Rob, and Rob knew the kid. Okay. And I'm like, this is just, this is crazy. And then he was in there for 4 days, and he doesn't know when he was going to get out, and he barely had food, and he wasn't really sure why he was being detained for the whole entire time. In that cell, we didn't have no beds, nothing, just not even a washroom. There was just like a room, and then a little room that you peed on the ground, and
it
like smelled so here. Bad.
It's not like Canada.
I know. I was like, oh well,
that's welcome to Dominican Republic.
Yeah, welcome to the DR. That's the experience of the jail. But at that moment, just being in there, having your freedom taken away for you very easily, and throughout the whole entire part of the story, I started learning a little bit more and more, and then feeling this injustice, and discovering the injustice that other people, how they're being trialed for the judiciary system. That's super, super unfair how things are done, and there's a lot of things, like not being able to call a lawyer, not having seen a judge after 40 hours, are the basic rights.
Yeah. How much time you were in prison before seeing a judge?
So we were in jail for 3 days. We slept 2 nights in Friusa, and then on Monday, March 7th. No, March 8th. Sorry, Monday, March 8th. This was more than 40 hours. They took us to Higüey, to I think the Central, to see a prosecutor. So we were supposed to not to the court, just to the other prison.
Fiscalía, se le dice aquí, a la fiscalía fue que lo llevaron. Oh, preventiva. Okay.
Yes, and then they were asking me, like, who hired the prosecutor asked me, why are you filming bad things with kids?
Who asked you?
The prosecutor that was in the office. And he told me, because he's a lawyer, you have the right to remain silent and not speak unless you have a lawyer. And I'm like, I'm not going to answer that question. My lawyer's not here.
Yeah, because they took you to the prosecutor and you didn't have a lawyer.
I didn't have my lawyer there. I got in contact with the lawyer because once I got in contact with the embassy, I never managed to call the embassy. Thankfully, my friend, when I told Christina, which is Rob's partner, I'm like, please find a way to call my friend. And then he found a way to call my friend. My friend, she told him the story. My friend called the embassy, tried to email them. Then it took more than 24 hours. Only like at night on the second day, or like in the afternoon in the second day, the embassy finally called me. They took me out there, like the Canadian embassy's on the phone. I told them everything. It's like, hey, I've been trying to manage to contact you, but this is the first time I'm in contact. And she told me that, okay, you have the right to call a lawyer. We can send you a list of lawyers that worked with Canadians. And then she said that whenever you want to call me, like the embassy, you can call me anytime. You have the right to do that. When I finished the phone call, there was the major. I tell Christina, can you translate, please? Can you tell him, hey, you never let me call the Canadian embassy? Then the major says, yeah, because it's a process. We can't let you call the embassy. It's an investigation. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You're allowed to call the embassy whenever.
No, they were violating your rights.
And then he gave me the list of lawyers. I got the call, and whenever the second day that we were in Higüey, the prosecutor asked us questions, what we do, and then they brought us to the courtyard of the jail, basically. I'm like, what's going on? Like, I thought we were going to see the judge. We're handcuffed. Me and Rob were handcuffed together. The other filmmakers, they're like, all right, you guys are going to the cell in the back. And then I'm like, he asked the questions like, hey, we should see a judge. It's been more than 40 hours. And they're like, no, you're going to see the judge maybe tomorrow. And then they took Rob in the cell, and then they took me aside. And then they tell me, come, we're going somewhere. I'm like, where are we going? They put me in the back of the police car. I'm like, ¿Dónde vamos? He's like, La Malena. I'm like, is that mejor o peor? He's like, it's mejor. I'm like, I don't know where we're going. So they take me to this other jail called La Malena. Okay. And then when I get there, they strip me, like the cop, strips me to see if I had any weapons or anything like that. He checks my money and he asks me, like, do I want to pay to stay here? And I'm like, what do you mean pay? I'm confused. And then they bring me to like the cell, and then it was like super intimidating. It was like the movies. Like you have like a bunch of inmates, you have like, there's mats, there's like a shower, it was a better jail than where they were. It was the more comfortable jail, but it was like really scary because I didn't know any Spanish. I didn't know anybody. There's a bunch of inmates there. There's like the boss that tells me you have to pay 3,500 pesos a week if you want to stay here. I'm like, I don't have money. How do I do that? So all that experience, I'm like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And then in that cell, I got lucky because there was a German guy who was in there, and he was falsely accused of hitting a girl. He met a girl in Punta Cana, and then something happened, and she was beating him. She started beating him. She tried to rob him, and then he holds her. They try to call the cops. The cops come, and then when they go to the hospital, the girl was hitting herself in the stomach, and then she was saying, yeah, he was hitting me. And then the cops, they took the guy and they put him in the jail, and then he was like, he spent they sent it to the Higüey, where the Guagua, where like you're one after the other. He saw a guy getting raped in there. It was really bad for him, and then he got transferred to the La Malena, and they were accusing him of beating a woman. But he then started explaining to me that all these people that were in La Malena, they were all like most of them, they were telling me like all their stories, that they were all in there because they were falsely accused. Like one guy, he was with a woman that was just taking advantage of him and freeloading, and then he's like, you know what, I'm breaking up with you, you can leave, you're not paying anything. And then she went to the cops saying, yeah, he beats me. They put him in jail. He's been in there for 3 months, and every single lawyer that these guys would get, they would pay them, and then the lawyers would scam them. They would either postpone their court date, or they would try to keep them in jail as long as possible. And I was freaking out because they're like, oh yeah, you're not going to get out. You're going to stay here for a month at least. So they're going to keep making you pay to stay inside of the jail. And
it's like everyone that goes to La Malena is fucked up.
It's a business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, these people don't look like criminals. They look really, really innocent. They're not big. They're not like those typical criminals you see in the movie with tattoos and all. They're like a guy
they see like old men, sleeping in the floor,
There was a guy, his name was
thin bodies,
There was a guy, he was like 65, and he was sick. They brought him to the hospital. He got better, and they brought him back in the cell. And I was like, why are you here?
It's like an asylum.
Almost like that. And
wow.
And
I didn't know that.
It's
every
like
day
you find out something. I didn't know I didn't know how. I'm like, there's a boss in the cell. Boss takes care of you. I'm like, it's the movies. But then you find out in real life. I'm like, wow, the people who made movies, they did good research.
Yeah, we call them the probo.
The probo.
Yeah, that's the boss of the jail.
The probo. Okay.
Yeah. So going back.
Yeah.
So when you came to vacation here, and to make to say good things of Dominican Republic, how was your experience before all this happened?
Well, to be honest, like I had a great experience. Despite COVID, there was a lot of restrictions. There's the curfew, but everything was great. I met some of the best people, the most kindest people, like in the Dominican Republic. People were treating me like family, like I'm the brother, and just people are happy. There's good vibes, and everybody's having fun. Everybody loves each other, and I was just having a good time. The beach, like you're eating on the restaurant, and then we went to discover these places like Hoyo Claro. I went to Santo Domingo like 3 times, and every time I went there, I met really cool people. And they're like, I didn't speak Spanish much. They're like, come, we go with you. They translate. They try to speak English with me, and it was just a great experience in total. So and even despite being arrested and all this, I still recommend people to come travel to the Dominican Republic after whenever they can with COVID. And I don't want to from this story, I don't want people to, be scared of tourism. Like, I don't want people from the DR saying, oh, he's trying to like harm tourism. Like, I'm still trying to promote tourism. I would still, gladly come back after this. Yeah. I want people to understand, like, this would have not happened to any tourists, like, in any situation. It was just because I was with the guys and there was a huge misunderstanding, and it so happened that I was there at the right time, the wrong time, the right place.
Yeah.
So, from this story, like, it just in terms of personal growth for me, being in a cell for like hours, you had to be patient. You couldn't start to panic and bang doors, and there was a lot of things that kind of really touched me and hurt me. So one of the things that really like broke me inside, the second day we were in the jail, when I was able to call the embassy, I get outside and I see the kids, like the 5 of the kids that Rob works with, that I've seen. I see them in the police, the office. They're like, Malik. I'm like, oh, like, yeah. What are you guys doing here? What are you guys doing? And they were so happy to see me. And the mom was there too. And I was happy to see them, but in a way I wasn't happy because one of them was handcuffed to the seat. I'm like, what happened? And Christina told me they were there because supposedly they were trying to steal dogs. I don't know what they were accused for. And then I was like, hey, this is a good timing to try to like clear this misunderstanding. I look at the lieutenant. I'm like, hey, I look at, say, the mother and the kids, like, is it true that we were trying to film a documentary? And they're like, yes, it's true. The kids and the mom said, yes, it's true. Sí, claro, it's true. And then I'm like, is it true that Rob helps you guys, teaches you capoeira, feeds you and everything? They're like, yes, it's true. And then, is it true that you gave permission to film for this documentary? And the mom's like, yes, it's true. And I look at the lieutenant, I'm like, do I look like a child trafficker to you? I'm an honest person. Like, can I go now? Is it time?
Este pequeño corte es para informarte que ya está disponible nuestra cuenta de Patreon. Ayúdanos a luchar esta guerra cultural.
After that is when they took the kids. Those kids were like 12 years old. Like, I think one of them was like 15. I'm not sure, but they were small. They were like at least 12. They took those kids and they put them in the cells, not our cell, but they put them in the cells. They locked them up in. And then as I'm walking, they're banging. They're like, Malik. And I could not look at them. I put my head down. I was like crying. I was like so sad. I'm like, I can't help you guys. I felt so vulnerable. And then they're banging the whole entire night. They're banging. They're like, Robe. They're like yelling. And then Rob's like, is that the kids? I'm like, yeah, it's one of the kids. They're like trying to, they're asking for help. Yeah. And those kids, I don't know where they are. None of us know where they are. And the one day I'm walking in Punta Cana after I got released. And the mom comes, she's like, ¿Dónde están los niños? ¿Dónde están los niños? I'm like, I don't know where the kids are. It's like the kids, they're still arrested. They're still being detained. I haven't seen them. I'm like, what's going on? Like, she's like, I'm trying to call Rob. I'm like, Rob doesn't have his phone. They have all their phones. Like, I don't even know like where Rob is. And then she's like, she gets a group, people start looking. I got super scared. I'm like they were accusing us because of us, that the kids, because of the film project, that the kids were being detained. So I'm like, no, I don't know where the kids are. So I tried to call Rob, saying, yo, Rob, you need to call the mother. You need to call her. Like, the kids are being detained. And we even went to Higüey to try to see where the kids were at Condani, but they didn't give us any information. So we tried to, we tried to find out where they were, and Rob's still trying to find out where the kids are, but they don't want to tell him. And then they tell the parents that because the parents accepted to be part of this film, they accepted that the kids would be part of the project, that they took them away. No one knows where they are. So in this whole situation, I'm like, that sucks, The kids have been separated, and they're blaming us for that. And I saw what the work Rob does. I got to experience, working with the kids just a bit, like participating with the class. I got to, bond with the kids. These kids are, they're smart, they're fun, they're bright, and it doesn't make sense. Like, these kids, like, for example, when we were filming, they kept taking my camera to learn how to, like, they're like, oh, I want to do photos. So those are the same kids that were part of the documentary. And then throughout the day filming, as I'm filming the behind the scenes, the kid is like, oh, Malika, come on, like, how do you play back? And I'm like, oh, you just do this, you do that to play back. And then they kept asking questions. And then I show Rob, I'm like, hey, Rob, you see these photos? They're nice photos. And then they're like, yeah, they're really nice photos. You took really great photos. I'm like, no, I didn't take those photos. It's the kids that took the photos. And, these were being able to participate. Like, I do capoeira. And that's why I was like so passionate and mesmerized about what the work Rob was doing. I'm like, I have to participate in this. Like these kids, you know, someone who's helping these kids learn capoeira, someone who's helping these kids get out of the streets, trying to feed them. You know, you look at YouTube and Facebook, you see these kids on like Canadians, we're super privileged. And we see a lot of these kids, you know, poor countries in Africa, in the DR, and all these South American countries, like, oh, you know, these kids need food. These kids need, you know, schools. But that's not the truth. Yeah. What they need the most is guidance. They need love. They need education. They need discipline. And that's exactly what Rob was doing to help these kids. And there's not many people that are doing that. And the fact that we were just had to go through this experience, and the people who are supposed to help, like, you know, the people who are supposed to help the people are the ones that are just making it harder for that. I'm like, how could someone be trying to put you in jail to make you stop helping these kids when you're like, you know, you're doing social work, you have a foundation. And that's why I had to take a decision. I'm like, you know, I want my equipment back. I need the equipment that they're holding to go back to work, so I can, you know, live as well, pay my bills. But there's also this part of the story that happened that is extremely unjust on my part. The injustice that I felt through this whole situation with like other people that are currently in that situation, but also the work that Rob is doing. And you know, he's been doing this for a couple of years, and imagine all the time that he's been working with these kids, and then all his project is just taken and thrown away. Yeah. So I can put myself in his shoes, and it's super difficult in that situation. So I'm like, you know, I got scared. I'm like, should I talk about this? I know it's very, like, freedom of speech here is not the same as freedom of speech in Canada. So I'm like, you know, is anything going to happen to me speaking about this? Well, I'm like, it's inhumane of me not to speak about this. And I really hope in this situation that this misunderstanding, like, just people realize how easy it is to create false news, to propaganda. Like, for us, it was so easy, you know, just put us in a cell, make us shut up, and then start putting out false accusations on articles. And then people, like, some people are not educated, so they don't know how to process information and to filter. And even those who are educated, who knows, like, there's like hundreds of different channels of news who knows what the truth is. And you can lie to people, and if you lie enough and it's so powerful, that becomes the truth. And that's exactly what was happening, that this lie was becoming the truth. And that's one of the messages. The point is, you know, people should be aware how easy this false news is created. And, you know, they should, like, it's also the people's job to be vigilant, to realize, okay, you know, does this make sense? And in our case, we were lucky because the people realized, hey, like, what the director is known in the film industry. He would never, traffic children. He would never exploit minors. The others too, like, they were getting phone calls like, what's going on? Like, that's impossible. It's crazy. Yeah. Rob is also known. He has a lot of context. Every single person knows what Rob is doing. There is so much evidence, like filming. He's got videos from the past on his social media, him showing the work he's been doing with the kids. Everybody knows, like, and then
even the authorities knew.
Even the authorities knew. He's been telling me, I had contact with the major. He told me that he spoke with the major when he was teaching these kids on the street. That first they started teaching them in the semáforo, on the grass, and then they're like, you can't do this. You can't teach these kids here. So they had a meeting to try to figure out how to help with the kids. And he told me, the major told him, you know, I really admire what you're doing. There's a lot of people that talk, but not a lot of people do what you actually do. And he even asked the politician, can he cut the grass? Like, he needs someone to help cut the grass. And they came and they cut the grass so that he could practice with the kids capoeira. And there's all videos on Facebook showing him practicing capoeira. And eventually they're like, you can't do this. You know, it's an intersection. You got to find somewhere else. He built this infrastructure out of his money. He's not making any money. He built this in behind a school to have the classes there. And they managed to move that to the back of the school. And the kids, they don't even have a lift. They have to take conchos, or they have to find a way to get there. And it's like, you know, these 12-year-old kids going like alone, it's pretty dangerous. But, you know, it's just like, wow, it's like a far walk if they have to go all the way to where they have to go. And they usually walk or they take lifts. And, you know, he's trying to, he was even trying to get, like, either the cops to get them a truck or to give them lifts, for example. He's been working on that. So he's actively working day by day, and he's not making anything out of this. And, you know, it's harder for him day by day. And if you understand my perspective, I work in film. I do a lot of film projects. The reason why I went into film in the first place was to be able to, you know, entertain people, to motivate younger generation, to create, you know, content, to harness their artistic side. Yeah. And, you know, then to have enough influence to be able to start doing things like social work and to help people. That's when I met him. I'm like, well, I have this opportunity now to do this. Let's do this now while I'm on trip. I have a great trip. I get to show people, like, there's tourism, like, there's this great people, great vibes. There's this guy who's working, and like capoeira. If people who don't know the art of capoeira, it's such a magical art. You have music, and it's like the most familiar art, that you feel like it's a family, and that's the perfect way. I found that the kids were able to, like, get together, and that's what he was bringing to the table. So a lot of these, like, foundations that are helping a lot, you can't be doing that to these people. Like, you can't be shutting down these people. You have to be helping these people. So a lot of this experience, the words I came, like, into conclusion to myself at the end of this. I'm like, it's the power of the people is the most important thing, because it's only thanks to you guys, for example, and thanks to everybody shouting, hey, get them out, that we were able to get out. In any situation, some other guy like me that doesn't have contacts, that doesn't have people, they would still be in jail. He told me that we are lucky that we got out, because
really lucky.
We could have been here for months, and right now they're still doing an investigation. There's an ongoing investigation. They're still doing according to the Canadian Embassy. There's still a current investigation about us.
Okay.
And I'm like, what is there, to investigate?
Because what I don't understand is why they have to take your equipment, like your camera, your lenses, your sound equipment, to make an investigation. The only thing they need is the memory card, to see.
Exactly.
The video.
There's on the and if you're taking this if you're doing an investigation, I'm guessing that the people are doing the investigation, they have experience, they're trained people. And that you don't have any secret, memory on the camera. You can easily say it could have taken literally 2 days to check the whole entire footage, all the hours, sit down, put on a computer, just look at everything, and then be like, okay, they realize, like, that's not the case.
And what they're saying, like, why they hold up your
equipment? I have no information. Our lawyers have no information. My lawyer is like, if you want, you could pay $500, and then we can go to court and fight for your equipment. I'm like, but the judge liberated us with our equipment. Why do I have to go back to court, pay more money that I don't have, and fight for our equipment? I don't need to do that.
When they took you to the judge, what happened?
So when we went to the judge on the trial, before we went to the trial, we were the idea was it was supposed to be a hearing to figure out what to do with us, if we had to pay a bail or if we had to stay in the country during the investigation. When we got there, and then Rob's lawyer started speaking about the case, and then the judge allowed Rob to speak and the director to speak. And my lawyer got to speak. It took like 20 minutes, not even. It was fast. And at the end of it, the judge said that there was not sufficient enough evidence of the prosecution of their case, what they're accusing us of. Therefore, we've been granted simple and pure freedom along with our belongings. And it's in the sentence as well that that we have by the judge. And then when I say that to the Canadian Embassy, the person responsible, she's like, no, you actually did not really have, according to the prosecutor, it's not simple and pure freedom, that they're still investigating. I'm like, it's written on paper, on a legal document that says pure and simple freedom. How can you get information that says it's not really simple and pure freedom? Like,
that's a lie.
Who's telling you this, And yeah, like, they took a photo of us, and then someone took a photo of us when we got liberated, and they started writing articles that we were liberated after this. And I'm like, okay, I thought that would be, happy ending, that everything would be still, everything would be good. I'm gonna get my equipment back. And everybody was like, what the hell are you doing? Get the hell out of there. You're going to get locked up. And I was like, no, I'm not going to get out of here. I have a lot of things to do. It might be scary that, you could get locked up, but I'm staying here. I want to work on this video. I want to clear this misunderstanding. I want to get back this equipment. I want to prove a point that you have to fight for what you believe is right for you. And that was right for me to stay here. I was scared. A lot of times I book a ticket to go back to Canada, and I'm like, I cancel. I'm like, no, I still have to do this. I still have to clear this, because there's still these news articles saying exploitación de menores under my name, under Rob's name, under all the filmmakers' name. And I put myself in this situation. These filmmakers, imagine working in the film industry in the Dominican, and everybody, do you want to do work? They Google your name, and then they see you've been exploiting minors. And that ruins their career. Just like that. You're trying to do a good cause and your career is ruined. And myself, like, going back to Canada, the news is not on the Canadian news. But I still want to do work here in the Dominican Republic. I would still love to like learn, assimilate Spanish and then come back and try to get film work. I want to, the country's beautiful. There's a lot of nice locations. I want to do that. I want to be able to do that and come back and not be afraid to come here. And that's why I decided to stay. But you have a case and you sentence the case and the case is like still ongoing and there's no information. I'm frustrated that no one is communicating with me, with us, even the lawyers, and everybody just wants money from us. Everybody's like, yeah, you need to pay this much. Like one of the lawyers was supposed to write this recurso de amparo, which is I think it's the document you write that this is what you're doing, that you're not supposed to be doing, that gets sent to the judge for our equipment back.
Yeah, it's a legal tool to it's like something like that. Yeah.
She was supposed to do that the day we got released, but she didn't do it. And then 5 days before the deadline to put this document, Rob calls her. She's like, "What's going on?" She's like, "Oh, I didn't do it because I need more money for him." Like, why didn't you just tell us? We would have paid more money. I found out I would have paid more money for it, but it's just frustrating that everybody just wants money, like in the lawyers, like in the situation. I understand that the lawyers need to get paid, it's their job, but tell me the money, like the amount up front.
How much money have you spent in this process?
In this process so far, I lost I had to spend like over $1,500 like in legal fees. I had to spend like another $600 for paper, like to get like power of attorneys and stuff like that, and then I had to spend for the equipment like $3,200. So I spent like around $6,000 in total cash, about, give or take.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. I don't have that much money.
No, and you had a budget, right, when you came here?
Yeah, exactly. I had money that I wanted. Like I was staying. For the hotel, I was being hosted with the hotel, so I wasn't paying, the rent.
Okay.
So it was very kind for the owner. He was being, very nice, and despite everything that happened, he still, let me stay, even though I couldn't complete the work.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, it led me, I had to. I'm like, I still, part of this equipment, one of the cameras belonged to the hotel.
Wow.
So I was like, they gave me the camera, like, you need take this camera, you can do the content you need. And now the camera's gone. It's like, well, you need to, you have to repay the equipment. And I'm like, I completely understand. I have to pay it back because it's my fault. It's my responsibility.
Yeah.
So that made me lose even more money. And despite all that, I had my equipment back. I have to go back because I have to take care of my father and I have to continue working. Despite all that, I'm still dedicated to film the rest of the tourism videos I was doing and promote, the country. Because after you meet the people that, hosted you, that spent time with you, you're like, there is so much potential in the Dominican Republic. There is so much that could be developed, but these things that are hindering the development is something that it shouldn't happen. In 2021, these things shouldn't be happening.
That's right, yeah. We have like a nice country, our people is warm, and we like to be host, that's right. But we have a problem with the authorities. That's a serious problem because they didn't want you to harm the tourism, taking to the jail a Canadian tourist,
And the Canadian
and robbing him, his equipment,
And the Canadian part of the tourism, most of the tourism comes from Canada because it's so easy for Canadians to come here. So I think there's 60% of tourists that come here are Canadian. It's a big amount of Canadians that come here. And why a Canadian, why would you do that to a Canadian at that in that case? So by coming here, I had no choice, I had absolutely no choice. No one is listening. The lawyers don't listen. I wrote a letter to the Minister of Tourism, Senor David Collado. I think that's how I pronounce his name.
Yeah.
And I sent this letter to the embassy to send to them, and I don't know. I don't have any news. I'm like, what's going on? Can I get a response?
After this video goes out, we're gonna send it to him, to the tourism minister.
I hope so. And it's just dealing with these issues of me, some things, let's say I'm not from here, for example, and I'm being trialed. At least I don't want to be mean to say, the Dominicans that were with me, we should it's fair for them to have the same treatment. No, but in terms of tourism, not being from the country, I should have had, let's say, a different treatment than, the Dominicans, just as logistically speaking.
Yeah, because you have your embassy, you should be able to call to your embassy, to communicate with your family and all that stuff. And also the treatment to the tourists here is like what the government says is that we treat the tourists better than anybody, and then you take a tourist to the jail.
Yeah.
For doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Like treatment wise, it's funny because as the days passed, as the second day, and as more people were putting pressure, that we started getting treated a little bit better. In the first, we didn't eat for like 8 hours the whole entire day, and then Rob was trying to tell the police officer we didn't have desayuno, and then the cop's like, well, that's not my problem. You guys didn't eat. And we tried to get food. It's like we couldn't get food, and we got lucky. Our friends brought us food.
If
and
your
water
friend
in the
didn't
oh yeah,
take food to you will starve.
We would have probably exactly. But I fasted for like after eating at night. I tried to not eat because I didn't want to go to the washroom. Yeah. But I was also I wasn't able to eat. I was very, very nervous about the whole thing.
Yo, we're sorry. In the name of our country, of that experience. It's something we the Dominicans live. It's like a common thing in here. Like we see how a lot of people is taken to the jail without any reason.
Yeah, and the thing is, people are just like kept in for 30 days, and they get there and then they should see a judge right away, for example. But they're kept in there for a while.
That's right.
Like 30 days, 3 months. Like the Chilean guy was talking to you about. He's 3 months without seeing like a judge. Yeah. Like the Moroccan guy who I was talking, the German guy who was half, who was talking to you about, he went to see the judge, and then they wrote the name of the girl that was hitting him. They wrote it wrong. They wrote Danielle instead of Daniela.
Okay.
So they're like, oh yeah, you were gonna have to change that. Come back the next day to see the judge, and then it's just like, why can't we just do this?
Change
why do you
right
delay?
Now. Yeah.
Why exactly? Why do you delay this process and keep in jail? And then he had to spend like 1,000 something euros, for his lawyer, and he had to tell his lawyer, hey, because his lawyer was going to keep the money. He gave him all his money before going to jail because the inmates would have taken the money, and he told his lawyer, hey, listen, you're doing a great job. The German embassy really likes the work you're doing. If you keep doing a good job, the German embassy is going to hire you as a lawyer. And the lawyer believed that. He's like, oh, okay. And then when he got out, he gave him back his money. But that's not true.
Yeah.
So if he didn't say that, the lawyer would have kept like 3,000 euros like from the guy I met.
Because it's all about the money. Sometimes, sometimes the judges, the police, the attorneys, and they work, and the lawyers work together. Yeah. It shouldn't be, but they do.
Yeah, he tried to call a lawyer from the embassy, the German embassy, and the cop called a lawyer he knows.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the guy, he's like, that's not the lawyer that's on the embassy. He's like, no, it's okay. This lawyer is good too. And then he couldn't make another phone call because they asked him for 1,000 pesos to make the phone call, and he wasn't able to make a phone call. And then he called his friend to call the embassy, and then after he got the call, the embassy was on the phone. They grabbed the phone, and then he's like, okay, well, you know what? I have to take this lawyer. I don't have a choice, because they didn't let him call again from the lawyer from the list. So, and then that lawyer ended up, taking a lot of money from him, and he was in the commission, the officer in Politur, I think, for USA.
Yeah.
And then Sestur, yeah. And then they send him to Higüey, in the worst prison, like in the back where like the Guagua. And then that prison, what I was told, you don't put foreigners in that prison. And then he spent like 8 hours in that prison. And his lawyer comes like, by the way, if you want me to get you out, it's going to cost you $200. And he's like, why do I have to pay you? I already paid you. He's like, oh, it's too. And he's like, I don't care. I'll pay you any amount. Just get me out of here. And they took him and they put him in the malena afterwards. Wow. And that's who he found out. You have to, before, when he was arrested by the cops asked him, hey, it's going to cost you $700 if you don't want to go to jail. He's like, I'm not paying any money. And then they put him in jail after that. And he realized he should have just paid the money to not go to jail.
So what you going to do right now? Like, you're going back, and then what you going to do with your equipment?
So right now, I have to, like, the time I wanted to stay, but as I go back, I have a friend here that came with me, so he has the power of it. Like we gave power of attorney, so he has the legal right to get my equipment back.
Okay.
Otherwise, like I'm giving the same thing to someone else. I'm giving the same power of attorney to someone else to get my equipment back. A friend here. So in that case, if they give back the equipment, that person would be able to get my equipment, and I can coordinate with them to either fly back here or meet in Miami or something like that. There's options.
No, we hope you get your equipment back. You know,
I hope so too. You know,
I think you have to get your equipment back because you didn't do anything wrong. You know.
Yeah.
You're being a victim of the police and the attorneys and everybody, lawyers, judges. It's like a mob. You know, it's like a corrupt scheme. You know.
It's like in terms of that, it's just it's unfortunate that it had to come down to that. Equipment in film, like it's expensive. It's not
that's right.
It's not like a phone or whatever. It's a lot of money, and working in film, it's a lot of you got to work for contracts and get these contracts. It's difficult in that sense, and it's like an artist, a painter's brush or a musician's microphone. Like those are my tools. Like you can't do art. You're deprived of now making art. And now I'm very confident that the people, my friends and the people listening, will come to help in this situation. But for me, the resolve that I really hope is, yes, to get the equipment back. But, there's still Rob, who's his life project, and the kids that are still separated from the parents and no one knows. These kids have to get liberated because they did nothing wrong. Rob did nothing wrong. None of us did anything wrong. They can't be detained, and Rob needs to keep doing the work he's doing because that's the only way that these kids that are the working kids on the streets, that's the only way that they're able to get an education. He asked them a question when after class, he's like, "Why are you kids not in school?" And the kids say, "Because it's COVID." And then he's like, that other kids your age are still in school and they're learning online. There's online classes happening. And the kids were unaware. They're like, "Oh, we don't know. We don't know about that." So, even COVID just, made it harder for these kids to not get an education. And when you're, growing up at like a certain age and you're out of school for a certain time and you just start to it's not work, but you're making money, like either begging or, either cleaning the windshields, for example.
Yeah.
They're making money. It's very hard for them to go back. And these kids, like, for example, they can't read and write. And he's teaching them, basic math, for example. And these kids, they're bright, but how are they able to persevere, go to university, or even just have a bright future if, like, for example, the work Rob is doing, if that's being deprived and taken away? If these kids still stay, and also Rob having the title of child trafficker, how the hell is he going to be able to work with kids? How is any person going to trust him, to work with any kids, having a foundation that the purpose is to be working with these kids? No one's going to trust him. And in that case, I'm like, people need to be, the whole entire public needs to listen to this guy, because we've been trying to reach out. People have been running away to have him speak. And, he's been trying desperately. And I see him, like, I've been spending time with him. He's been hosting me at his apartment. His mother, too, they've been cooking. And I see all the stress that he's been going through. I see he's losing weight. And this situation is bringing him a lot of inconveniences. And, like, as a friend, as a brother, you see your other brother, like, going through this extremely hardship. You can't do much about it because you're as well are going part of this hardship. You're trying to help. And it's just, it's a crusher. It's like a heart crusher.
Yeah, we hope, all this gets solved. We're gonna send this video to the authorities. They have to solve it. They have to do something, because we were talking to Rob and he told us, the situation he's facing, about the organization, about the childs, that the fathers and mothers don't know where they are, so that's not legal, because if the authorities take away your child for you, they have to let you know where they took him.
Exactly,
where they took them. So that's a ugly situation. So I'm going to talk Spanish now to finish the interview. Tú sabes un poco de español. Te agradecemos. We give you the thanks de estar aquí. Nosotros en Somos Pueblo TV le vamos a dar seguimiento a este caso. Realmente República Dominicana es un país hermoso. con mucha gente buena que lamentablemente se ha visto afectado por autoridades que hacen la cosa mal, que realmente la imagen que le dan al país es la peor imagen, que le hacen daño al turismo, que le hacen daño a lo que tanto el gobierno de aquí promueve, que es una imagen de un país para vacacionar, de gente amable. Entonces todo eso, cuando usted como autoridad mete preso a un turista que lo que esté colaborando con este país, cuando usted como autoridad hace eso, todo eso se cae. Entonces nosotros esperamos que rectifiquen, que les devuelvan su equipo, que la situación con los niños que son abandonados por las autoridades, por el sistema, y que por eso están trabajando en la calle, se regularice con su madre, porque la madre lo están buscando y no sabe dónde están los niños. Así que lo vamos a dejar hasta aquí el día de hoy. Somos Pueblo TV, se pueden suscribir, compartan, activen las notificaciones, nos pueden apoyar por Patreon, Somos Pueblo TV, o por PayPal, somospueblonoticias@gmail.com. Thank you, Malik.
Thank you guys. You guys have been very helpful in terms of letting us, be part of this interview and just the articles you guys wrote. And it's just, I'm very thankful. And in any way possible that with all this situation being resolved I just hope that, you guys could keep doing what you're doing and keep growing, because you guys, it's absolutely admirable that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that.
Thanks.
And thank you for having me, and make sure you guys visit Santo Domingo. It's a really cool. In like 17 days.
Si te gustó nuestro contenido, por favor, suscríbete.